Hello, today is June 18th, 2019. This is the broader SIG cluster lifecycle meeting. I will share my screen and get this rolling. Hopefully folks can see my screen. Yes, no, maybe so. All right. So if you could add your details to the attending list, that would be super helpful. First up is a PSA. I should have said PSA. For a long time, the SIG, we've bantered about the creation of a separate subproject specifically for building images. It's kind of an overlap between SIG release and SIG cluster lifecycle. We would probably be doing most of the maintenance work, so it kind of would live here. It wouldn't necessarily have to live with the release team either, because we're not actually publishing artifacts as part of the release output. It would allow them to publish artifacts at any snapshot point in time. So it's primarily for end consumers and those who are working on cluster API. So if you have a chance, please comment on it. I think we'll do the standard process of letting it curate in the community. So give folks enough time to read through the CAP, and maybe next week we'll have one more discussion. Then the week after that, we'll do a final vote about creation. So I've mentioned it several times. I don't know if we want to wait that long. I'll ask next SIG cluster lifecycle meeting to see if folks have any questions, comments, complaints, concerns, and then we can do a vote after that. Are there any comments there with regards to the image building? Once, twice, three times.
Just one. There is. I added a comment on the CAP PR. So there is a sample implementation that uses libguestfs and cloud images. So there is something tangible already that can give people an idea of what it will look like.
Yeah. There's also reference implementations that we could
potentially look like.
Yeah, there are also reference implementations from CAPI, as well as CatV, as well as all the other cluster API providers. We're gonna have to put all those things in a meat grinder and find a solution that we agree upon.
Yeah.
And maybe we can do something with the kube deploy tool as well.
Yeah.
Like consolidate that one in as well.
Yeah, there's too many of these things. Next up, I wanted to discuss this. I logged an issue and I talked with Jordan and Dims on this topic. Is that it overlaps with another area that folks would like to do. So I'll give a brief synopsis of the background here. The / cluster directory or kubeup has been, quote, deprecated, quote, for almost 2 years now. Right? And the reason why / cluster is on in perpetuity, whoever's not talking, can you please mute? All right, I muted you. It lives on in perpetuity, and it constantly gets updated, and we're always pinged almost every single release cycle to at least find or identify issues or discrepancies across deployments, or to find or fix bugs that exist inside of it. So what I would like to do is to at least start to enumerate the list of items as a SIG of what would be required in order for us to remove the cluster directory. In the ideal world, what I would hope for would be to use the tools that the SIG has created. Given that a lot of the testing automation is still on Google Cloud, I would really like to do something like build up the GCP provider for cluster API and use a lot of the standard patterns that we sort of curated in other cluster API providers, try to get that to speed. It's like a longer term vision. But I think in the short term, what I'd like to do, or in the near term for 116, is at least start to identify an enumerated list of what needs to be fixed or removed to get rid of kubeup or the / cluster directory.
I mean, the big thing in my mind is test coverage, right? That's the primary reason why we haven't been able to get rid of it.
And I don't think there's anything that really actually prevents us from doing that, right? So long as the knobs are exposed, we could probably enumerate that list and get that covered.
and the knobs are exposed, or as the list is enumerated in the YAML, the test YAML files in test infra. So there is a reference to the scenarios we cover. Obviously, it's not perhaps in the format we would like, but it is not terrible.
Yeah. Does anyone have strong opinions about maintaining cluster up or the /cluster directory? It's been a long-standing thorn in our side as a SIG.
As you might know, definitely in favor of killing cube up in the same way as cluster Kubernetes. Long time coming. I think that do we sponsor the GCP cluster API provider yet? Is it there?
I'm going to have a separate conversation with Googlers and probably include Justin in that conversation too, about trying to build that up. I'm going through your management chain first, Justin.
Yeah.
Because I know how you guys get resourced, so
that works. We do need another resource to review PRs, because I've got like 20 PRs in the backlog, but I can't review my own PRs. So yes, it would be, if you can help there, or if anyone else wants to review PRs, that would be wonderful.
I'm more than happy to start helping with PR reviews there, Justin.
Cool, thank you.
But what I'd like to do is maybe kind of have this as a long-standing touch point. So on other sub-projects, sometimes what we do is we have a list up on top of long-running items, and we just kind of touch base on those long-running items across releases.
Yes, I think that if we, so what is our, now that we have kind and kinder too, didn't we at some point say that we would like to move, so the pre-submits are tests that are really fast, stable, and require minimal infra. Google kindly hosts like 90% at least of these, if probably more, thanks to the grant. But is there any way we could, as a first step, use some of the other cluster API providers that we have that are like working, that have received the maintenance they need? Is there anything blocking us from setting up, say, on AWS? They donated some money too, right?
Yeah. So I think the biggest blocker there is just hooking up the tooling and time. I do think that we could probably hook that up, and should probably hook that up. And that could, for a good number of the test scenarios, they could be a cohort of GCP and AWS in the fullness of time to get better cross coverage across cloud providers.
So there is one additional holdup for AWS testing, and that's the lack of multiple actual AWS accounts.
And an update on that. That was my, I was trying to, so we can do that. We just need unique email addresses for each. And I was struggling to create, I guess, a group. I got lost in the hierarchy, or the org of who creates Google groups. But I will kick it again and see if I can figure it out. But we basically need either one Google group or n Google groups, depending whether they support suffixes or not, or whether Amazon cares about suffixes or AWS cares about suffixes. And then it should be fairly straightforward to create organizational sub-accounts, which isolates all the different jobs.
Could we create, on that main cluster issue, could we start to enumerate some of these items there? So that way, over time, as we revisit, that becomes the canonical master list.
You mean like link issues to 78995?
Yeah, link issues or you should be, if you have maintainer rights, you should be able to modify or edit this. What I'm hoping to do is get like an umbrella list of the work items we need, and start to actually every single release cycle start to revisit and burn away some of these items.
How about that I create now up here in the concurrency. Well, you do it. Then, right. That we yes, tracking issues there in GitHub, and just link all the 10 different stuff we have. Sounds good to me. I mean, there are lots more. Yes, given that we have cluster API, AWS in good shape, and kind. I mean, I'm not saying we should test the cloud provider specific things. That is way out of scope for now. Like, can I create a AWS load balancer with service type load balancer? No, not that kind of stuff. Just like spin up, get compute, whatever, wherever it is, and then just like run kind. Pretty much that should be the first step.
Why don't we start this? You're cutting in and out, Lucas. If you are interested, please chime in on that ticket, and we will try to federate out the work appropriately to try and get more eyes on this. We'll revisit this issue across these meetings. But we can probably move on, because we could rabbit hole in just this topic if we wanted to, and not get to the other agenda items. The next step on my list was also associated with sort of like project maintenance and curation. So with the maturity of kind and kinder, I was talking with Ben, the elder, and I don't know if there's a scenario that's not covered in those two tools that Dind accommodates today. And the question I had is whether or not we wanted to move Dind to retired, or if anyone has any known good user stories that aren't covered by those other tools.
My first knowledge of that would be with CNI pluggability. I'm not sure how many people are depending on that right now. Maybe we could find some of the folks from the Mirantis portion of the project. But I do know that it supports multiple CNIs. As far as like the multi-cluster PR, we never got that merged. So that's something that Kind does better. Kind does the HA stuff. I don't think we have like phases that are disableable inside of Kind.
That was to be done. It's on the list, but I don't know where the state is. I'd have to sync with Lubomir. And Fabrizio is on the call too, about when they're planning on tackling that.
Yeah. Maybe it would be best to post a GitHub issue and send a note out to the mailing list to ask for feedback on this particular part of the topic.
Yeah, I'm going to do that on this one. And I will also put it as a long-standing issue, but it's good to at least have the initial PSA here, and then as we can revisit it again next time and have more detailed information, and also try to sync with the Mirantis folks to see if there are any user stories that aren't being met.
Yeah, that sounds good. I'm just looking at the commit list, and one issue with Kubernetes and Din cluster is that maintenance is low or non-existent, basically. So the last commit had been made in May, 2nd of May, but that was just one. Before that, in mid-March, we had a PR. So that is definitely one thing that that is problematic from like the sponsoring point of view, that we're not sure how or if it actually works today, which is obviously sad. But I think we could. So how is IPv6 in kind?
It works today that I'm aware of. In fact, people are trying to test dual mode on kind.
Oh, cool. You're right.
So
that's good. Yes, let's put it as a long-standing thing, and we can sync with Myrentis.
I was just asking, is it deprecated yet? Like, can we ask them to deprecate it?
That was going to go through the process of writing up an email and asking them if they want to continue to maintain this thing, or if we can move it into a deprecated state, and try to make sure that we are addressing the feature parity difference across the different implementations.
Okay, yeah, that'll surface some issue, I'm sure, with a 2-year backlog of tasks, hopefully, or hopefully not.
Well, from my understanding, Kind has done a bang-up job of keeping up to date with the Joneses, and they've actually surpassed them on a number of fronts.
That's true, but yes, I was mostly joking, but yes, hopefully it will surface any remaining gaps like CNI.
Yeah.
So generally,
Cool.
just a question: do we have a Kubernetes retired organization? Is that the process? Yes. Right.
Yep. So there's a well-defined process in steering for retiring projects. So.
Right. Cool.
And for those of you who don't know, because this is fun for me, we actually did retire Kubernetes contrib. So for those of you who have been around the project forever, contrib was like the early days dumping bucket for everything that wasn't okay. And that has moved to retired, finally.
Right. Cool. I need to check that out. And at first it was like just a folder too, which was even weirder. Right.
Just like take a trip down memory lane.
Yeah. Well, every now and then, it was one of those things that it was a compromise. No one liked the compromise. So when it finally, when it's finally retired, everyone kind of, there was no champagne bottle to pop at that time. I wish there was. Wish there was broader notification. But we can move on. I digress. KubeADM v115 blog post. Lucas and Fabricio.
Right. So I got pinged by George recently, Castro recently, and he's managing the blog post for 115, and he said they'd like to have a KubeADM blog post. So I posted in SIG cluster lifecycle leads in Slack, told that we have this wish, and now on yesterday and today we quickly wrote up something that should surface. The link is there. I created a quick screencast of how the AJ mode works. It works really well. Thanks everybody for that awesome work. It's super smooth. I did it serially to allow for like, so you could actually see what's happening joining the three masters, and it took less than 3 minutes, I think. So that is definitely a nice thing. I'm gonna check this into Git probably after this meeting. Yeah, tonight. So if you have any changes you'd like to see, comment there, please, and we'll try to address them. Otherwise, you can. I'll send out the PR too. It's to the Kubernetes website repo, and probably now that the release is delayed until Wednesday, most likely, it's probably gonna land on Monday next week. And we also have in the main Kubernetes 115 release blog that goes out hopefully tomorrow, we also have a section called Cluster Lifecycle Stability and Usability Improvements that we just, in a few sentences, talk about what we've done in the last cycle and why it matters. Right. So any questions to that? Comments, concerns?
Nope, but you get the next one too, so you can keep going.
Cool. Right. And then we have the logo voting that Lubomir created. It's been up for a week, so I think we could close it. And as part of this announcement, now that I'm gonna see if Alex responded there, but now that we have a winner from the poll, option 2, which you see referenced there, we can actually go ahead and announce this during the blog post or the release announcement or both. So that's nice. Any concerns about actually accepting this particular logo? I wrote up the 3 most popular, the stats for the 3 most popular logos and the options that there were. This one got 67 votes, 17.4%, and the second got 12.4%. So it was significantly more that this one had. Obviously, we know that this system is vulnerable to kind of gaming, that you could actually open up 15 different browsers and submit your favorite result, but I don't know if we have any reason to think that would be the case. So in other words, I'm asking, are we happy with this option, with this logo? Do we make it real?
I'm happy, but I'm also biased because that was the logo that I voted for. So if there are dissenters, it's a good time for you to speak your mind or forever hold your peace.
Yes.
All right, going once, twice.
Let's look at the chat.
It's just +1s.
Cool. Then that is our logo. I will update the release announcement to try to squeeze it in into tomorrow's post. And performance results, we actually have a logo, because this all came from that we submitted the conformance test for 1.14, and Dan said, well, you shouldn't use Kubernetes logo. And we're like, well, we don't have any, we don't have our own. So then he was like, well, CNCF can help you. We have designers. So there we go. Thank you, everyone.
All right. Next up is Fabio.
Hey, everyone. So I'm coming here today as the co-chair of SIG-VMware. As some folks might know, we're in the process of folding some of the cloud provider-related SIGs, including SIG-VMware. And we always hosted the cluster API provider for vSphere under SIG-VMware. So, with the upcoming folding, we wanted to propose that we can move the sub-project from SIG-VMware to SIG Cluster Lifecycle. My understanding is that usually it's done through, come to the meeting, discuss that, and send a message to the mailing list for lazy consensus. Is that fine if we do that? Any concerns?
I don't think there's many concerns on our side. We could probably just do a vote today and then email for lazy consensus, because there's so much precedent there. We already have all the other providers under our umbrella, unless anyone else thinks otherwise.
Both doing just quick roundup or like quick poll like we did now with the logo, and then sending out like to the mailing list that this is XYZ that we want to do, and then if you don't speak up in 3 days or something, we'll we'll make that happen. It's fine by me.
So real quickly, if you don't have a problem with it, you can either do a +0, which is a non-vote, or you could do a 0, or you could just not say anything, or you can +1 in the chat. If there are -1s, please specify in chat.
Can I confirm that all the other cluster API providers that are under Kubernetes SIG's GitHub org are under SIG cluster lifecycle? Is that true?
Some of them are dual owned by the cloud provider and SIG cluster lifecycle, but with cloud provider folding in, it'll probably be dual owned by cloud provider or just the umbrella cloud provider as well as SIG cluster lifecycle.
OpenStack and Azure are the two exceptions to SIG cluster lifecycle ownership right now.
Okay.
We should probably address that.
And just to give another point of information here, in SIG Cloud Provider recently proposed a change in the charter. So everything that is cloud provider dependent and is not owned by any other SIGs will end up being owned by cloud provider. So like things like CSI and other things that are not currently owned by any other like larger SIG, like Cluster Lifecycle, would be owned by cloud provider. But since Cluster API is owned by Cluster Lifecycle, I think it makes sense for just like consolidate everything under here.
Yeah, I agree. Plus, it would be nice at KubeCon if when we do the cluster API talks, and this is going to be later on, I think we have a topic on this. When we do the KubeCon talks, it'd be nice if the provider implementations could give a brief update along with the main CAPI owners to be able to actually say, this is the state of things, to give an overall update as part of a KubeCon discussion.
Yeah, agreed.
So just random questions. So you said that, so as this process happens with SIG cloud provider folding all the others, as I understood it, cloud provider specific implementations will become sub-projects instead. Is that right?
Correct, yes. If there's no other SIG that can host the project, it will end up in SIG Cloud Provider. SIG Cloud Provider will act as a catch-all for anything that is cloud provider specific and is not owned by any other SIG.
Right. So, but the folks will be the same, that if I'm interested in vSphere and want to do stuff on that, I work in SIG Cloud Provider, I work in the VMware sub-project of SIG Cloud Provider, and I maybe work in Cluster Lifecycle's vSphere provider for Cluster API and things like that. So it's spread around different owners, but those people that are in cloud provider specific SIGs like GCP and AWS and vSphere, VMware and similar will then be just spread around different places.
Correct,
now.
yes.
Cool. Yeah, I don't have a problem with it. I think it makes sense to have stuff close where we are developing the project.
So there's no really objections in chat. Why don't we move to email with timeout, and then we can open up and make a modification to owners files to match.
And can I just suggest that we consider all the CAPI providers or all the cluster API providers together, rather than that was my only concern, like whether we're doing something different for vSphere than we're doing for AWS or OpenStack, right? Just that we're actually homogenizing everything.
I'd be cool with that too. Maybe Fabio can sync with the Azure and you, Justin, on GCP. Are you the last man standing there?
Not at all, but yeah, I'm happy to drive GCP.
Okay.
Right. Yeah, I think Justin's concern that makes a ton of sense. As we're talking about this, let's make sure that we do the same for everybody. Yes, that's good.
I think the timing is right, as I think the plan to fold the SIG in is to be done before KubeCon North America CFP closes, which is July 15, if I'm not mistaken. So it's something that is coming in the next, couple of weeks. So it's probably the right time to, if we want to consolidate, to start working on that.
Yeah. Any other last questions, comments, complaints, concerns on that topic? Going once, twice, 3 times. Next up, KubeCon US planning.
Added this. I'm mostly curious how we want to address KubeCon US. I'm new to this process, but I would like to learn. Yeah, thank you.
So typically sub-project owners, main sub-project owners request the leads to have submit a talk under SIG Cluster Lifecycle umbrella. Most of the time they're just status updates of the projects, as well as like the call to, it's a trifecta of status update, what are we plan, what's the vision, status update, what's the vision / plan, and how you can get involved, typically. So I'd assume that most of the major sub-projects would want to submit a talk. I think it might be worthwhile from SIG Cluster Lifecycle for us to have maybe an additional criteria that we want to sort of try to make sure that we apply to the talks, so that way we just have some level of uniformity. For, like how to get people involved, make sure that we always have that slide, like some criteria that we use to evaluate talks. But I assume that we will want to submit talks for the major sub-projects, and we've done that for every cycle. So that includes KubeADM, Cluster API, Minikube, COPS, and KubeSpray.
Yes, and also to mention that we have to motivate to CNCF staff or KubeCon staff why we should have like 5 different deep dives. But that's something we definitely will and can do, as long as we think we have the right content represented. And as Tim said, I think it makes sense to formalize the either templates or just like requirements for slides. Shall we just list quickly the different talks that we expect to have?
That's the list that I can think of right off of the top of my head.
And just to clarify, these are the deep dives, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I still at some point in the future time would love to put Minikube and Kind in a meat grinder, and try to dedupe that space.
Do you guys think that we would have an add-ons deep dive?
I do. Like the question is like, is it in a consumable state?
Ideally by 116, or I mean, it's aspirational.
So sometimes as part of our intro talks, we definitely allude to these other pieces. But I think the key awareness in in the talks is to basically have something that people can, kick the tires on.
Actually, this can be part of the Kubernetes deep dive. I mean, come to think of it. So
we can create the long list of talks here and then curate later, I
Yeah.
suggest.
Yeah, I like that idea. So if you have other thoughts, please add them to the list. But we can probably, because we only have 23 minutes left, kind of want to make sure we go through our round robin of updates here. It would be helpful too if someone else can help me take notes with our round robin updates. Are there any other last?
Trying to take note.
Are there any other questions, comments? Go ahead.
One question. Did Kind have a deep dive from SIG testing's point of view last KubeCon, do you know? Or did they just opt out?
They had a separate talk, but it was not necessarily a deep dive, I don't think.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it was a normal talk, yeah, from following the CFP process, right?
Yes.
Okay, we definitely should revisit that this time then. Cool. Yeah, let's move to the next one.
All right. Updates. Does somebody want to do the cluster API update?
I can go ahead. Cluster API, we have a code walkthrough scheduled for next week, June 25th at 12 p.m. This is going to be in kind of superseding the office hours. Else, we will go through kind of the cluster API code base. We'll do some quick demos. This should take around 1 hour. There is an agenda in the meeting notes for cluster API if you're curious, and please add things that you want to talk about or we would like to go into if you want to learn more about cluster API. The next item is machine states and preview bootstrapping proposal. This is still a work in progress. We haven't talked about if we want to plan to merge this this week or next week. It's kind of ongoing. We will start opening issues to kind of start splitting up the work. And the first one that we actually tackled and kind of readopted for V1 Alpha 1 is the node ref controller. If you don't know, Cluster API has a concept of machine, which are then become Kubernetes nodes, and we try to link a machine to a Kubernetes node. Sometimes the Cluster API controller runs in a management cluster, which is a cluster that runs outside of the cluster that you're trying to spin up. And in that case, Cluster API didn't have any support for accessing the target cluster. This PR kind of adds a convention which a cloud provider can kind of store a kubeconfig somewhere in a secret, and the controller will use that secret to kind of set that node reference. And this will help also for bubbling up status, for example, for machine set and machine deployment for readiness. Last grooming for V1 Alpha 2 would be this Friday. Yes, we have been doing grooming for Cluster API for the past 3 weeks. And we'll plan to do one this coming Friday. Thanks, Tim, for adding that one.
Are there any other last questions, comments, complaints, concerns?
I'm just curious if you have some tentative date where you would like to have Alpha 1 Alpha 2 out the door. Do you have any target milestone date?
So we have been talking about Kubernetes release plus 6 weeks, but I think for V1 Alpha 2, we talked about end of August, as Tim is showing. So that's what we're planning on.
Cool, thanks.
Yeah, so for the broader update, there was an update to the main repository that it makes sense to offset Cluster API by 6 weeks, so that way it's easier for them to consume a Kubernetes release and to make sure the Kubernetes types are solid. It's gone through some vetting. It's got at least a .1 or .2 release underneath its belt, and then to vendor in the types information and go from there. Also, the vendoring should probably be a lot easier once Bootstrap Provider is in place. It'll simplify the different cloud providers. I do not see.
Yeah, this sounds good. Another meta question that sprang to mind. How do we have any way to, so to say, manage the different? So now that we're accepting vSphere, we do OpenStack, GCP, AWS, all of these. Do we have any process or tracking dashboard or some kind of place I could go to and know that, okay, now it's 6 weeks after Kubernetes 1.15 was released, and I see that some providers have been released with 1.15 support, and some providers are 4 months still until that's going to happen.
So this is a long-standing problem. I have strong opinions on this. Strong opinions loosely held, which is basically a way of stating that, like, let's get in an argument about nothing. So we needs to be addressed. It's not been addressed. We keep on kind of punting that issue around in a circle. None of the answers are anything that I think that anybody likes. So I think I'm going to defer to that group until we get consensus there, and I'll help moderate that particular topic. I do think it's a real big problem, especially for consumers.
And I want to add, like, we're kind of trying to move forward and like reduce fragmentation that, you know, between providers that we have today. As you mentioned, like, we need something like how like a dashboard, some like of some sort, so like that we can see which providers like are supported and etc. So we're trying to move forward in that direction. It's long road.
Right. Yeah, you don't have to have an answer right now if it's not. I was just curious if something like that had been decided yet. Okay. Kubedium then.
Fabrizio, do you want to give an update? Because I don't see Lubomir in the call.
Yes, I can give a quick update. So Kubernetes now is quiet. There are no much activity. We are monitoring the test grid for release. Everything looks good. We had a strange problem with API server answering unauthorized, and we implemented a workaround, but the problem should be better investigated in order to find the root and fix the real root of the problem. And that's it for the activity that are going on now. The next office hour meeting tomorrow, we are planning to have, we want to have a planning for 1.16. So if someone is interested, please join. That's it.
Any questions for the Kubedium?
No, thank you.
All right, next up, add-ons.
Cool. So Daniel and I have done some project management. And if you take a look at the issues pages, they're there for reference. We've got some concrete items of work now that are stepping towards the proposal of moving forward with implementing more kind of customized patching. We've got the project board as well. Yeah. So using customized not only for its patching and overlay support, but also then wrapping it in some packaging bits that may require a bit of contribution to the customized project itself. And then also implementing a standalone POC of the installation config and user experience that we expect should be pretty vendorable into tools like Kubedium, Kops, etc. We've received input from the Kubedium contributor call, and then obviously Justin from Kops, as well as Ilya from Weave EKS Cuddle has been joining the add-ons calls, and we've kind of got some shared ideas about implementation. And in addition to that, the work that's been done to start out the kube builder declarative pattern for creating operators in a way that is not super hard to do, is off to a good start. So lots of consensus building in this group, good project management starting to form. I think it would be really wonderful if we could get some alpha features into kubeadm for 1.16. And yeah, if anyone is looking to contribute into an interesting space, is obviously something that's been a problem space that's needed to be solved in user space, out in the community. And now we've got something that's really doing some more sophisticated work in our upstream project. So contributions welcome. Please come and help us work on stuff.
I think my only comment might be that if we try to adhere to the policy we've had for a long time, that we are going to try to deprecate /cluster. Please don't add this to cluster if we can avoid it. Because what happens in perpetuity is all features of major modifications seem how to somehow get added to that thing.
Yeah, we can make an explicit decision to not do that. I think the majority of the work right now is going to be happening in the add-on operators repository that's linked there. So.
Okay. Any questions for Lee? Next up, component config.
Right. So we just had the meeting before this, and we discussed a few things. One of them is that I've decided to step down as a lead, basically just because of lack of time, which is really unfortunate. But I will, and also I'm going to university in a couple of weeks now, so that is also a preparation in before that, where obviously I won't have the same amount of time I had now. But I'm hoping like that Lee or any similar person would step up instead and get people up to speed. As part of this, we just discussed that we're hoping, or we're planning to do a new contributor onboarding session, like we did for this group, and by that be able to have more efficient onboarding process to the space, which is pretty in places. So that's mostly it. Code freeze is lifted. We can start merging the PRs that have been on hold. Any questions, comments?
There were a couple people who were looking to contribute yesterday. So if we have resources that we can poke them at, if they're either put up in the main README for things or some reference point we can point them at, I think that'd be highly beneficial to on-ramp new folks.
Yes, I'm taking as an action item to create that onboarding meeting where I will be around and others to onboard these people, and obviously anyone is welcome.
Next up, are there any last questions about component config? Going once, twice, 3 times. I talked with.
Sorry, it's worth mentioning that we have kubeproxy kept to beta for the component config there. PSA. Okay. So
we should add that to the notes.
Yeah.
I talked with Antoine with regards to kubespray. He's going to asynchronously update. Next up is Justin.
Yeah, no business as usual. No real significant updates. So I will happily yield the time to people that do have things of general interest.
I do know that I poked Thomas and he put some details about Minikube. Is there anyone else who Minikube folks who wants to talk about this
Yeah, I'm here from Minikube.
Okay.
So I mean, this is basically it. But basically, 1.1, making Windows a less terrible experience, and updating the latest versions of like Cryo and Docker and Kubernetes. And we're working on command line localization. So anything that gets spit out to the command line is going to be translated into the language of your system locale on the fly. And he's going to, and Thomas is actually in China. He's going to demo that at KubeCon. And our doc site is sort of up and running. It's not quite done yet. And the minikube.sigs.kates.io is not up and running yet, but it's on its way. The Netlify URL does work, and there's like placeholder stuff there, but it's up and running, and he's going to be working on that. Tom's going to be working on that sort of this week.
Cool. Any questions for Minikube folks?
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, this is Medya from Minikube also. We're also working on the VM-free Minikube. It's on our milestone for next release. I just want to like announce it, so we are working on that. So you'll have a Minikube in Docker, VM-free. So it's going to be a faster experience. That's it.
Can you please, add that to the note?
Sure. I'm in the GBus now, but I will add the links as soon as I get off the bus.
Yeah, we can. That should be fine.
Any other questions, comments for Minikube? Last up, SCD-ADM. Daniel, I'm guessing?
Hi. Yeah, there's the first sub-project meeting is happening next Monday. So if you're interested, please join. There's an invite already to our Google group. We would like additional approvers. I think at the moment I'm able to approve. I think Justin, you I think like are busy with a lot of other things. So I would like to get additional approvers. I have a couple of people in mind. I just wanted to. I don't know what the protocol is. So first I wanted to just to raise the issue. What do we do to get additional approvers? What's the right thing? What should I do to get additional approvers?
Usually it's based on contributions, right? If there are people who are going to maintain the code and who have been active in the project, helping sort of build them up to speed to be a good approver is the typical mode of operation. Okay. So like in kubeadm, we regularly try to recycle people around, right? So like you kind of build them up, and every cycle we try to promote people who have been very active. So that's the typical process, and you kind of go through sort of a mentorship role with them and spend time sort of making sure that they dot the I's and cross the T's as any good approver should.
Okay. Okay. So I have a couple of people in mind. I can reach out to them. I guess the place that we're in with just one approver is a little tough because it means that I guess I can technically merge the PRs because we're still doing manual merging through GitHub. So I think I can merge them, but I guess I wouldn't. I don't know. Right now, when I submit a PR, no matter how trivial, if it's not, I can't approve it myself. So
I did just go through an LGTM or both LGTM, then approved your two PRs, Daniel, and I apologize for that.
Oh, okay.
Do email me as well, and then let's also do email me to ping me, and then let's get some additional approvers and bring them up the ladder, as it were. I think that'd be great. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks. All right. And then the other thing, just wanted to. So we have. So we should be able to do binary releases. So have the artifact on GitHub. Moshe Loop or Moshe Immerman contributed that and that merge. So just wanted to share that. And that's it.
Any questions about Etcd ADM? I'll talk slow.
No.
All right. Last up, Lucas.
Right. I just want to spin and say a bit more about that. Tim already touched on it. You already talked about it for Etcd ADM, but for the other sub-projects we have too, that, as Tim said, at the end of cycle, we try to promote the people that have been doing good work, and we would encourage you to do the same. So the sub-project owners for each sub-project would do the same for that specific project. And if you have questions, you can reach out to us leads in Slack, for example. We have a channel for such meta discussion linked there, or just to any one of us directly. That's how we make this thing work.
Any other last group topics?
Any questions? Yeah.
Good once, twice, 3 times. So the only last thing to share, I think, at the end, because we only got 2 minutes left, is that I think it'd be super awesome for KubeCon North America to have like maybe a SIG cluster lifecycle t-shirt / sweatshirt or something with the different logos we have now, because we have several logos on it. I think that'd be kind of a cool, fun thing to do. So if you're interested, maybe reach out to me and maybe we can come up with some design where we kind of get those other logos all together on there. All right.
They could all be like at a picnic eating tacos or something.
On that note, take care, everybody. Go have some tacos.